Hey folks, so it has been about a year since I first started GMing. Yesterday, as of hopefully the day this is going up on Tuesday, so Monday, will have marked the official year mark. Now, I had run a game before that point last year, but this marks kind of a year as me being a GM of an ongoing campaign, and also specifically a homebrew campaign. So I thought I would do a little bit of a reflection of what I've learned over the past year, how my process has changed, and also talk about the things that I still need to improve on. Alright, so first of all, planning. I started out by planning pretty much exclusively on my computer, just using a Word doc. I found that I work better with physical notes. Now, I still use this Word doc, but I've shifted a little bit. I now do kind of the broad planning in that Word doc because I can reference things back and forth a little bit, but I've started using the Rook and the Raven campaign planner, and I really like the layout of this. I find that writing out the session notes, I actually remember them a little bit better handwriting than typing. So I kind of have to refer to my notes a little less, and I find it easier to find stuff in a physical notebook because I know I can flip back a couple pages, I can put tabs in, stuff like that, versus having to scroll back up through a document or try and search back for key phrases or stuff like that. On the note-taking topic, before I started using the campaign planner, I had a notebook with me that I would jot down stuff during session, and I found this is really important. There were a couple sessions that I didn't do this, and I can't remember key details about those sessions. So I had to ask my players, like, what was it that you guys were looking for, or did you pick up? So having that to just jot down quickly notes, and one thing that I'm working on trying to implement a little bit more is either after the session is done or the next day, going back over my notes. Because oftentimes I'll jot down a word that a month later, if I'm going back to those notes to try and reference something, I may forget what I meant by that quick note. So I'm trying to get in the habit of going back through and expanding my notes right after session, right after or the day after when it's still fresh, so that I remember all of that stuff. And also, oftentimes there are little things that during session I think, oh, I don't need to write this down, but getting a little bit of space, I'm like, no, that would be really cool if this NPC popped up again that I just made up on the spot, or stuff like that, so I can flesh it out from there. My day of prep has pretty much remained the same since I started. I do like to have everything planned before the day of the session. I just find that works so much better for me, and I don't stress out. I'm not panicked before the session even starts. And then my setup is just kind of, I set up the table, I set up my notes, usually have a little bit of time, so that's all set up probably about half an hour to an hour before folks start arriving. So if there are any last minute things, I've got time, I'm not scrambling as people are walking in the door. I'm running a homebrew, but over the past year I have used a couple modules for kind of one-shot sessions, especially when we've had folks that couldn't make it. We've just kind of gone off on a side quest, and I've used some modules for that. And I've discovered that I prefer running homebrew. I like having a little bit more control to go wherever my players and I want to go. However, I really like modules and like random table generators or puzzle ideas that I find through forums and stuff online to get inspiration from. So to take it and find ways to work this puzzle idea into my world, or to take something and put my own spin on it. It just really helps having some kind of structure or inspiration that I can expand on, that I'm not just trying to pull stuff from out of the blue. So one thing that I'm still struggling a little bit with is combat. I've struggled a bit with finding a good balance for difficulty for combat, and I found a bunch of different tables or equations to figure out what challenge rating monsters should be for my players. But what I think I've been running into is that, so the general party that I have, the players who are here the most, their characters are a bard, a barbarian, a fighter, and a paladin. we've got some heavy hitters, but also our bard is particularly squishy. So it's a challenge of trying to find something that we don't just end after one round of combat, but it's not also too difficult where, if it does hit the bard's just gone, or even one of the other players. I'm still working on trying to figure that out. Some of what I've done is that I've just adjusted numbers on the monsters. I've gone into it going, okay, I'm going to just up the HP on this monster a little bit so that it's not doing a whole bunch more damage, but it takes a little bit longer for them to defeat it. I've also been working on trying to have a little bit more complex combat encounters, having them deal with different kinds of monsters or enemies, adding in environmental hazards that they have to cope with or deal with, or, having, like, they just had a session where they had to rescue somebody. That combat actually went a lot faster than I planned, but there was the, had it gone a little bit longer, they would have had to worry about, the person they're trying to rescue is getting hurt as well, and trying to keep that, get to them and help them in time. So yeah, if you've got any suggestions on how to balance out combat encounters for combat-heavy parties, let me know down in comments below. I could use the help. So overall, what do I think after a year of GMing? I really enjoy it. I like having the creative outlet of, I love creating backstories and characters and world building, but I often have struggled with creating the story, I guess, the conflicts and stuff like that. I can come up with ideas, but not necessarily what the resolution should be. The fun thing with GMing is I can come up with all of that, and then my players get to figure out the resolution. Usually I come up with a couple of different ideas, but then they end up going off in a completely different direction that I didn't see them going in, and that's so much fun. I will say it's a lot of work. I put in probably at least the amount of time that we spend in session, out of session planning, and most of the time probably double that. Just brainstorming, coming up with things, looking things up in the book, writing everything down. But it's so rewarding when everybody gets around the table and we tell this really great story. Now, I will say that I do kind of miss being a player. I am looking forward to, a couple of our friends have talked about putting together a campaign or a couple of one-shots and asking if I want to be a player in it. I'm like, yes, 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 I would love that. I do miss getting to play one character and follow one character's story arc rather than all of these different NPCs and keeping track of all of my players' story arcs, and it's a different experience, but I like them both. And I don't know right now if I could say if I have a preference over GMing or being a player, because I kind of get different things out of both of them. So there you go. Those are my thoughts and things I've learned, things I'm still working on after a year of GMing. I'm sure there's probably a lot more stuff that I'm going to learn over the years as I continue doing this and hopefully get better and better. I'm interested to find out how long you have been running games. Are you new? Have you been running games for years and years? And do you have any suggestions for your fellow GMs of things that you've figured out in the last year or the last couple of years that have made life easier for you, or a really cool way of doing something? Let's talk about it down in the comments below. I want to give a special thanks to all of our patrons, especially Sean, Joan, Arby, Lainey, and Bryce. If you're interested in becoming one of our patrons, you can head over to patreon.com/rollforinitiative and check out the perks that you can pick up. And thank you to everyone who watches the videos. This is why we're here, why we make these videos, for you. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye! So overall, I'll end with that.